morning, my friends. This is Rick, and you're seated at the table. We are looking at the Iron Crown Enterprises Empire of the Witch King for Middle Earth role-playing game system MERP. Now, this one here is a later rendition based upon the Angmar source book, and it's more detail-oriented for the Angmar itself, the Witch King's empire, and less of the surrounding additional stuff. So if you have the Angmar source book, you would still want that because it includes a lot more stuff about Arthur Dane and some surrounding other areas other than Angmar. This one here just to be a bit more in depth, in my opinion. I could be wrong on that, of course. It's not a bad book. This one was produced in 1989. Typical definitions and stuff you need for adapting your module to whatever campaign rules set you're using, converting stats and combat abilities, converting spell lists, etc., etc., locks and traps. Introduction. So, the Empire of the Witch King details Angmar during a period from 3rd Age 1600 to 1700. This date was chosen with a variety of factors, considering the history of Middle Earth in mind. It yields many interesting possibilities for adventures while simultaneously recreating some of the glories of the Third Age. In Gondor, travelers may see the fair city of Minas Ithil before it became Minas Morgul. In the north, adventurers may prowl the town of Tharbad or enjoy the beauty of Fornos. The dwarves may turn their eyes from the monuments of men and walk among the splendors of Carn Dum before it falls into shadow. This era is not wholly alien to those familiar with Middle Earth time of War of the Ring. The hobbits lived in the Shire for 100 years, and the Barrow Downs are haunted. An innkeeper named Butterbar entertains his guests at the town of Bree, like his father before him, etc., etc. In Isengard, however, is wizardless. No riders of the mark dwell in the rolling plains of Rohan. Very emptiness of Eroded recalls the region of a time of the War Ring. The plague of the Third Age, 1636, left many towns standing empty, etc., etc. So, here's background information. Angmar. The land of Angmar is one of the grimmest places in all of Middle Earth. It is not black and twisted like Mordor, but heartbreakingly cold and barren. It occupies the northern fork and the western Misty Mountains, as well as the slope of the eastern Misty Mountains, where the Anduin source forms from a narrow chasm down a long waterfall. Little activity is centered upon the barren plain between the bulk of the mountains. The border guard of men is set up in the rolling hills along the edge of the low plateau. These soldiers would watch the long border along the road that runs from Carn Dum to the southern tip of Angmar. The Orcs prefer the safety of the tunnels of the mountains. In the east, Witch King requires no border guard. The mountains bar entry into Angmar from that direction except those who know the Orcish tunnels. So we got observations of a spy, the land, the terrain, the Gundalok Pass, northern Misty Mountains, water, climate, fauna, flora, wolves, a troll hole, some trolls. Yeah, bears, wild trolls, giants, dragons, people and culture of the Angarium. The inhabitants of the Iron Land are called Angmarium. Their diversity is a frightening manifestation of perverse influence and power of the Lord of Morgul. Fierce and savage Sagoth and Ashdrag tribes, Dunlandings, Hillmen, Radurium, Northmen, Dinadan, and even men from distant Khand and Far Herod all pay allegiance to the banner of the Witch King. Many of these men live within the borders of Angmar as warriors, priests, and ordinary farmers. Still more, especially Eastlings, dwell outside Angmar in their traditional homelands, etc., etc. And then we got further breakdown Hillmen and the Dunlandings. You can get more information on them from the supplement Hillmen of the Trollshaws, which I've done a video on already. The Istarvi, the Easterlings, the Runnish peasants, mixed men, townfolk, fellmen. The Fellmen or Moormen are the lowest of the Angmarium. They live in scattered rude hamlets in the hills and mountain vales of Angmar, often where no other race care to dwell. Yeah, right. Always somebody. Tributary people of Angmar, slaves, nomads, the Orcs, and the various tribes and affiliations. There's quite a few of them that's to be expected. Politics and power, the hierarchy of Angmar, the priesthood of Angmar, called the Dark Lord, ritual practices, the Angmarian priesthood, people of note, the Witch King, The general powers and features of the Nazgul. The 9 Rings of Power, origins of the Witch King, the lore of the Nazgul, early Third Age, wars in the North, Minas Morgul, prelude to the War of the Ring, search for the Ring, the War of the Ring, death of the Witch King stats as of what's acceptable for the Witch-king of Angmar. And although I'm not sure if ring race, once you're dead, you're dead. Once you're an undead, you're undead. I don't know if undead can improve their stats, and they perhaps can learn more stuff. I don't know. I guess that's a topic that'd be interesting to pursue sometime. Angolium, the most powerful mortal servant of the necromancer. And the Witch King's ultimate commander of his armies, the Mornatori, however you want to pronounce these names. I know my ability to pronounce certain words is terrible, and I apologize for that profusely on many a video. It is what it is. I'll give you 56 in another week, so I'm not going to be able to change it anytime soon. Let's see. So, Warcraft, history of Warcraft in the Third Age, military organizations for Angmar, weapons in the Angmarium, the siege equipment, chain of command, the Orc host, the Hurkle, or the Hurrik is an elite military unit, usually with special purpose. There are several Hurriks in Angmar: the Witch King's bodyguard, the Oghai, the crossbowmen, the ranger, the trackers, and the Urukai. Trackers, rangers, etc. Trade routes, fortifications, the great castles, life on the frontier, beacon towers, lesser fortifications, border watches, the winged Coldrake, the Dunedain, communications, royal holds, Angmarium strategy, Carn Dum, exterior defenses, interior defenses at Carn Dum, and there are key locations and areas to be found if you're going to be foolish enough or have a purpose to get in there. You know, lots and lots of good stuff. Barad Morkai, long borders from Angmar make it impossible to efficiently control all the frontier villages from Carn Dum. Accordingly, the Witch King's orders were sent to 3 large border castles which serve as capitals for the surrounding territories. Garrison life, garrison captains. So I ran a short campaign set in Angmar. Well, this probably been 35 years ago. Where the people, for the most part, if you could avoid dealing with the Orcs and getting murdered by them, and obviously in the campaign, the players never came up against the Nazgul or the top minions, but they still were considered travelers or traders, and they made their way through the land and interacted with some various locations and had a couple adventures and stuff in Angmar, and we never really established exactly why they were there, but they weren't there to become minions of the Nazgul. But it is still another country, and it is human centric in some aspects. So you can travel through. The only ones that would really have a problem would be an elf, and that's just being blunt, because all elves, there are no evil elves as far as canon's concerned. Although there's some misguided ones, there's some dark ones. So I guess it's not totally impossible to find a corrupted elf, but to have one as a part of an adventuring party was problematic. I think we had one person who was a half elf, and he took great care to hide that fact, like keeping his ears covered, kind of thing. Garrison captains. Here's the castle designs. This is Barad Morkai example. Mendel Garish, Witch King's principal outpost in the Undernor and Durnath, held by a contingent of 37 and blah, blah, blah. So it's an outpost, an example outpost. Another the border castles. Overview, garrison, figures and notes, print, Elginar's Keep. The Lyskrak. Don't ask me how to pronounce it. Many high peaks in the northern Misty Mountains. One such spire has no name in the tongues of elves, men, or dwarves, but like the many named Cardos or Redhorn of Moria, conceals a dangerous secret. Yeah, there you go. There's something in there. Something that we'll find out and get yourself in trouble. Angmarian towns of various types. Talk about village life. Villagers of note. The lanes of Latash. The tower, the lower town, town life. Upper town. Rabda, a wood fort, the tombs, typical buildings, the Falashar. The managed tribes in Angmar frequently hunt or raise large livestock, taking advantage of the ground unsuitable for tilling. Time comes for slaughtering animals, or when the hunters bring home a large catch, the bigger work begins. After a beast or blah 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 goes into, what they do. Orc holds, various information on them, different orc holds, tribal organization. The Urk-Lugat. The Urk-Lugat are a backward mountain orc tribe that occupies the highlands along the northwestern slopes of the Entmoors. More enthralled to their crazed shaman leader than to the government of Angmar. They are an undisciplined force, etc. Always the oddballs. There's always somebody. The Urk-Kosh. The Sharp-Tap Crawl. Urk-Kosh War Host. Ancient sites, Saunter's Mount, Saunter's Prophecy, the site of the prophecy, Darren's Pool, Darren's Lammet, Oscuril's Place, campaign aids. We got typical MERP charts, adolescent skills, development points, professional bonuses, creating a MERP orc character. That's an interesting addition. I completely spaced off this one. Talk about how you can create an NPC that you can play, or not an NPC, but an orc character that you can play in Middle-earth, which is a very rare thing. It's common to see orcs and half-orc and player characters in Dungeons and Dragons and similar game systems, but in the old days, that was not a playable class. You could not play an orc. And I don't remember when half-orc came along. It was pretty early in, but the idea of that happening in something like the Middle-earth is almost unheard of, because the only time you would play that kind of a character would be as if you're involving yourself in a dark campaign, or what might be considered an evil campaign with evil players. But that's just, my opinion. Languages of the Witch-king, an Orcish glossary. That's just what you need to know. You never know when that come in handy. If you're really into that sort of thing, you could teach yourself Orcish and confuse and delight and annoy your friends and family. Designing a castle, designing a small outpost, raids and sorties, supplies for the outposts and castles, suggestions for adventures, herb lore of the Dunedain, Angmar at other times, select reading, master beast table, master military table, master NPC table, etc., etc. Alright, master encounter table. So there we have Empire of the Witch-king. Guys, have a great weekend. Until next time, this is Rick, and your seat at the table.